The boy in front of me bit into his second power fruit, smiled for half a second, and then his left eye turned into gold crystal. A crack ran across his cheek. Another split his lips. He tried to scream, but crystal branches punched through his throat first. They burst from his arms, tore through his white ceremony coat, and spread across the floor in shining red lines. When his knees hit the stone, both legs broke apart below him. A piece of his crystal hand slid to a stop beside my shoe. The examiner did not even look shocked. He lifted his voice so the hundreds of students in Greyhaven Awakening Hall could hear him. One fruit, one power, one life. The dead boy's fingers twitched on the floor. Then the examiner looked at me. Kieran Vale, step forward. The line behind me went silent. I walked around the body and stopped beneath the hanging fruit lamps. Hundreds of glass fruits glowed above the hall, each holding a different color. Red for fire, blue for water, gold for healing, dark gray for body powers, white for rare mind gifts. The real origin fruit sat inside clear boxes on the stage. Each student received one. That single bite decided the rest of your life. A strong power meant guild offers, college support, a safe home, and enough money to stop counting every meal. A weak power meant low work until your body gave out. I had one cracked house, 2 weeks of food, and no family left to call. I needed something useful. Across the hall, Marcus Rain leaned against the rail in his new crimson coat. Dark steel already covered his shoulders and arms. Gold lines shaped like claws ran over the armor.
Steel Lion, A rank.
He had received his power 10 minutes earlier. 3 guild agents had offered him contracts before the glow left his skin. Marcus caught me looking and smiled. Try not to grow flowers, Vale. Several students laughed. Leora Arden did not. She stood near the healers with long golden blonde hair falling over one shoulder. Warm light touched her fair skin. Her green eyes stayed on the blood near my shoes. A thin gold shield still floated around her wrist.
Dawn Barrier, A rank.
Of course she had received something rare. Leora had always been good at everything without acting like she knew it. She had shared notes with me when I worked nights. She had waited after class when I came in wet from repairing my roof during a storm. She was also the reason half the men in our year suddenly cared about study groups. I looked away before Marcus noticed. The examiner held out a pale green fruit. It smelled like wet soil. My stomach sank. The shape alone told me it came from a low branch. Take it, he said. I bit down. The skin broke easily. The flesh was cool and almost tasteless. For one breath, nothing happened. Then something moved under my ribs. A cold line reached from my chest to my right shoulder, down my arm, and into my palm. Silver-black marks spread beneath my skin, like thin roots. The lamps above me went dark. A flat green screen appeared in the air.
Gardener. Rank F. Plants grow slightly faster. Plants need less water.
The hall exploded with laughter. Not cruel laughter from a few people. Everyone. Even the students who had received weak cleaning powers looked relieved. At least they were not the orphan who needed a combat career and got better watering hands. One guild agent closed the folder he had opened for me. Another turned away before the screen vanished. Marcus pushed from the rail. That is almost impressive, he called. My family gardener needed 20 years of training to become that useless. More laughter. My face stayed still, but the words hit exactly where he wanted. I had studied dungeon plants for 4 years. I knew how guilds rank support users. Gardener was not secretly valuable. It was a cheap labor skill. No dungeon team would take me near a monster. No city office would pay enough to repair my house. The examiner touched the broken crystal branch with his shoe and looked at the next student. Move. I stepped off the stage. Leora moved toward me, but a woman in a gold Arden coat caught her arm. The woman whispered something sharp. Leora's mouth tightened. Marcus reached her first. Your family box is ready, he said. Come on. Leora did not take his offered hand. Her eyes found mine across the hall. She looked worried, not embarrassed. That almost made the moment worse. I lowered my head and walked toward the exit. Something hard pressed against my thumb. I looked down. The empty green fruit husk was still in my hand. The seed was the size of a fingernail and shaped like a small heart. It moved. One slow beat against my skin. Then another. A screen flashed so quickly, I thought I imagined it.
Unknown seed detected. Plant it.
I closed my fist. Behind me, the examiner called the next name. Outside, cold rain struck the hall steps. Reporters crowded around Marcus and Leora beneath bright crystal lights. Marcus raised one armored hand while people shouted questions. I walked past them alone. Kieran! Leora's voice reached me through the rain. I did not stop. Not because I was angry at her, because the seed had beaten again, and this time, silver-black roots moved beneath the skin of my palm, toward it. My house stood at the far edge of Greyhaven, where the paved road broke into mud. The front wall leaned a little more every winter. Half the roof above the kitchen was covered by old metal sheets. The garden had been dead since my parents died. Rainwater dripped through the hall ceiling into 3 different pots. I locked the door, set my bag down, and opened my hand. The seed was warm now.
Root sense awakening. Soil found. Depth 3 meters.
Something pulsed below the house. I froze. The feeling was not a sound. It was more like knowing where my own fingers were, except the fingers were under the floor. Thin roots slept beneath the foundation. They were old. They were waiting. I took a shovel from the broken shed and walked into the garden. The dead soil had turned to black mud. I dug beside the shed until the blade struck a flat stone. The moment I touched the stone, the root mark in my palm burned. A second screen appeared.
First root bed found. Place seed. Feed blood.
That last word should have stopped me. Instead, I thought of the crystal body breaking on the hall floor. I thought of the guild agents closing their folders. I thought of Marcus smiling beside Leora. Then I dragged the shovel edge across my palm. Blood filled the root mark. I pressed the seed into the mud. For 1 second, the whole garden went silent. The rain stopped making noise. The city disappeared. A black root shot from the ground and wrapped around my wrist. I tried to pull back. It held me in place. Pain punched through my chest. I dropped to one knee as silver light burst beneath the soil. Roots spread in every direction. They cracked the stone bed, raced under the shed, and pushed through the dead garden in glowing lines. The shed floor rose. A silver trunk exploded from the earth. It tore through the roof in one violent rush and kept growing. Branches opened above my house like metal bones. Black leaves unfolded in the rain. Blue light moved through them like trapped lightning. The entire tree had grown in less than 10 seconds. My useless gardener screen shattered. A new one took its place.
World orchard connected. First tree awakened. Root network 1.
I stared up through the broken shed roof. A single blue fruit formed above me. It swelled from a small spark to the size of an apple. White lightning crawled beneath its dark blue skin.
Storm pulse fruit. Power lightning body. Safe for owner.
I laughed once. It came out rough and breathless. The dead garden around me turned green. Grass pushed through mud. Vines climbed the broken fence. Roots slipped under the house, and somewhere inside, the dripping water stopped. The blue fruit dropped. I caught it. The fruit in my hand was a second power fruit. The crystal hand beside my shoe flashed through my mind. 1 fruit, 1 power, 1 life. The screen said safe. The dead boy had probably believed something too. I held the fruit near my mouth. Thunder rolled above Greyhaven. The tree answered with blue light.
Self-grown fruit. Counted as root network. Fruit limit none detected.
My pulse jumped. None detected. Not 2, not 3, none. Fear stayed in my chest, but something stronger rose beside it. Hunger. I bit into the storm pulse fruit. The fruit tasted like cold metal and summer rain. Lightning hit every nerve in my body. My teeth locked. My back arched. The fruit dropped from my hand as blue-white veins spread across my chest and neck. For one terrible second, my heart stopped. I knew it had stopped, because the whole world became clear and empty. I heard rain striking each leaf. I heard a mouse beneath the kitchen floor. I heard my own blood slow inside my ears. Then a bolt snapped from the tree into my palm. My heart slammed once, twice. A third beat shook me so hard that my knees tore through the mud.
New power. Lightning body. Stacked powers 1. Power clash none.
I dragged in a breath. Blue sparks jumped from my lips. The pain faded fast, leaving heat in my muscles. I could feel the storm above the city. Not only hear it, feel it. Every cloud held pressure. Every drop of rain carried a small path. I raised one hand. Lightning crawled between my fingers. A laugh almost escaped me again. Then the first tree flashed red.
Threat drawn by power release. Above.
Something screamed in the clouds. A black shape dropped through the rain and struck the top branches hard enough to bend the silver trunk. 6 wings opened. The creature was larger than a horse. Wet black feathers clung to a body covered in bone plates. 3 yellow eyes stared down at me. Its hooked beak was long enough to split my chest. A dungeon crow. Not one of the small scavengers that nested near weak gates. This one had 6 wings and a red core glowing behind its throat. It screamed again. The sound broke 2 windows in my house. I moved before I thought. The crow jumped from the tree. I threw myself sideways. Its claws hit the mud where my ribs had been and cut 4 deep lines through the ground. Lightning rushed into my legs. The garden vanished beneath me. I crossed 6 meters too fast, hit the broken fence, and went through it shoulder first. Wood snapped around me. I landed in the road with my left arm numb. It should not have been that fast for its size. All 6 wings beat once, and the creature flew low over the garden. Its beak punched through the fence beside my head. I rolled under one wing and drove my fist into its ribs. Blue light burst from my knuckles. The crow slid across the yard. I stared at my hand. I had just moved a beast that weighed more than 5 men. The crow recovered before I did. One claw caught my shoulder. The tip went through my shirt and skin, then dragged me off my feet. He ripped across my back. I hit the mud, face down. The beast planted 1 foot between my shoulder blades. Its weight crushed the air from my lungs. The hooked beak opened above my head. Inside its throat, the red core brightened. It was about to tear my skull open and eat the new power it smelled inside me. A small screen shook in front of my eyes.
Lightning body. Output 12%.
I had been using only a fraction of the power. I pressed my right palm into the mud. The root mark touched the first tree's network. Blue light flooded my arm.
Output 41%.
The crow's beak came down. I twisted onto my back and punched upward. My fist entered the soft flesh under its jaw. Lightning exploded from my shoulder to my knuckles. Bone broke around my hand. The beak snapped shut crooked. My arm drove through its tongue, through the roof of its mouth, and into the skull. For one instant, the creature's 3 eyes went wide. Then blue-white light burst from all of them. The back of its skull blew apart. Black blood and pieces of bone sprayed over the silver roots. The crow fell on top of me. Its body hit like a dropped wall. I lay under it, breathing through the smell of wet feathers and burned meat. My right arm was still trapped inside its head. Silver roots slid through the mud and wrapped around the corpse. The red core tore free from the crow's throat with a wet crack. It rolled across the roots, still beating.
Monster core found. Feed tree.
Yes, I said. The roots pierced it. Red light rushed up the trunk. A new branch grew from the silver bark. Its leaves opened dark red. A fruit formed at the end, shaped like a small pear with black marks along the skin.
Red fang fruit. Power. Predator strength. Growth need. Monster meat.
I pushed the dead crow off me. My shoulder wound opened wider. Blood ran down my arm and mixed with the rain. I reached for the red fruit. Kieran. Leora stood at the broken gate. Her golden hair was soaked and stuck to her face. A clear gold shield floated around one hand. Her eyes moved from the giant tree to the crow corpse to my bloody arm. Then they found the blue lightning still crawling under my skin. She went pale. What did you eat? I looked at the red fruit in my hand. That is a longer answer than it should be. Leora stepped into the garden and almost slipped on black blood. Do not eat that. It says it will heal me faster if I eat monster meat. Her eyes widened. That was not the part I meant. The crow twitched behind me. I bit the red fang fruit. Leora made a sound that was half anger and half fear. Heat struck my stomach. It was different from the lightning. This power spread low and deep, filling muscle and bone. My hands changed first. The fingers thickened slightly. Dark red lines appeared around my nails. Every smell in the garden became sharp. Rain, blood, burned feathers, Leora's soap, the worn skin at her throat. My wounded shoulder pulled together. Not fully.
New power. Predator strength. Stacked powers. 2. Power clash none.
Leora reached me in 3 quick steps. She grabbed my face with both hands and looked into my eyes. Your pupils changed. Is that bad? They are red. That sounds slightly better than advertised. She stared at me, then she hit my chest with the flat of one hand. Not hard, hard enough to make her point. You watched someone die from a second fruit less than 6 hours ago. I know, and you ate 2 more. Only one was a second fruit. The other was a third. Her mouth opened. I stopped talking. Leora looked toward the street. No one stood in the rain, but the crow's scream would have carried. Inside, she said. The roots had already begun repairing the house. The broken front steps straightened beneath our feet. Cracks in the wall closed with thin lines of silver stone. The metal sheets on the roof bent into place, while black vines sealed the gaps. Leora noticed all of it. She said nothing until we were in the kitchen and the door closed behind us. Warm water ran from the old tap. I had not had warm water in that house for 3 years. Leora turned it off and looked at me. Take off your shirt. I raised an eyebrow. Your shoulder is open, Kieran. Right. The wet cloth stuck to the wound. I pulled it over my head slowly. Leora's gaze moved across my chest before she caught herself. Then she focused on the burns. Thin blue lines crossed my ribs and climbed toward my neck. She touched one with 2 careful fingers. A spark jumped to her skin. Her breath caught. Does that hurt? Not anymore. It should. She stood close enough that her wet hair brushed my shoulder. The gold shield around her wrist faded, leaving only warm light over her fingers. She cleaned the claw wound with water and an old cloth. Her touch was controlled, but I could feel her hand shaking. I watched her face. You came after me. I saw you leave with blood on your shoes and no coat. That was not my blood. That did not make it better. She tied the cloth around my shoulder and finally looked at the tree through the repaired window. What happened here? I opened my right hand. The silver-black root mark had reached my wrist. My fruit contained a seed. Leora glanced at me. Origin fruits do not contain living seeds. This one did. And the tree gave you lightning? Then the crow core gave me strength. She sat at the small kitchen table. The chair repaired itself under her. Leora jumped up. I looked at the chair. That is new. She pressed one hand over her eyes. You are taking this very well. I am trying not to frighten the house. Despite herself, she laughed once. The sound changed the kitchen more than the warm water had. I told her everything. The hidden scream, the root bed, the first tree, the message that self-grown fruit counted as part of me. I did not leave out the stopped heart. Leora's face tightened at that part. When I finished, she walked to the back window and stared at the silver branches. If the Harvest Authority learns this, they will take the tree. They can try. They will not ask. I stood beside her. Outside, roots pulled the dead crow toward the garden. New grass closed over the blood. Leora looked at my reflection in the glass. Marcus saw something after you left. What? He asked why your hand was glowing. I had not noticed. He watches people when he thinks they have something he wants, she continued. He also asked the examiner for your fruit record. Why would the examiner give it to him? Marcus's father funds the hall. So Marcus could get my record whenever he wanted. Leora turned to me. I will not tell anyone. I believed her before she finished the sentence. That should have frightened me more than the crow. Instead, it felt like the first warm thing I had been given all day. The roots beneath the floor pulsed.
Root sense. Dungeon mark found. Below property. Depth 31 meters.
I looked down. Leora followed my gaze. What now? I felt the sleeping mark beneath my house and smiled. Now I find out what else my garden can grow. I slept for 4 hours. That was more than I expected. The first tree hummed beneath the house all night. Each time I woke, another crack in the ceiling had closed. By morning, the kitchen no longer smelled like damp wood. The roof held. Green leaves covered the dead garden. Leora had stayed on the old couch with a blanket around her shoulders. At some point during the night, the roots had repaired the couch and made it wider. When I entered the kitchen, she was standing in one of my clean shirts. The shirt reached halfway down her thighs. Her wet uniform hung near the stove, dried by a low gold flame from her palm. She looked over her shoulder. Do not say anything. I was going to ask whether the house gave you breakfast. It did not. Then it still has limits. She pointed at the table. There were 2 slices of bread left in my cupboard. I knew, because I had counted them the night before. Now a bowl of red berries sat between us.
Root harvest. Basic food grown.
Leora picked one up. Are these safe? The house says yes. That is what the fruit said before your heart stopped. It started again. She gave me a look. I ate 3 berries. They tasted like strawberries, only sweeter. Leora waited 5 seconds, then ate one. So this is your new plan? She asked. Eat anything the walls produce? Only if it glows. That is worse. The front room changed while we ate. Roots pushed broken boards into place and grew a shelf across one wall. The house was not becoming rich, Not yet, but it was becoming whole. I had forgotten how quiet a house sounded when rain did not enter it. After breakfast, Leora made me test lightning body outside. She stood behind me, with both arms around my shoulders so she could pull me back if I lost control. Her chest pressed lightly against my back. Warm gold light covered her hands where they rested near my collarbone. Slowly, she said, I know. You crossed the whole garden and went through a fence. The fence was weak. The next fence may be stronger. I raised my right hand. Blue sparks formed above my palm. The power wanted to move fast. It ran toward every muscle at once. Leora's light pressed against it, giving me something warm to push against. I sent a small bolt into a dead stump. The stump exploded. Wood hit the side of the house. Leora tightened her arms. That was small? Yes. She rested her forehead between my shoulder blades for a moment. Kieran, I am happy your skill is not useless. But I would like you alive long enough to enjoy it. The words landed deeper than she knew. I turned inside her arms. She stepped back before the moment could become something neither of us had named.
College dungeon trial. Report in 2 days. Root's car entrance. Attendance required for field credit.
Leora read it over my shoulder. Marcus is leading the high group. Of course he is. You can claim a support exemption. No? Kieran. The Roots felt something under the property. Rootscar may connect to it. And you want another seed. I need another seed. She folded her arms. Red Fang sharpened every sense. I heard her pulse quicken when she looked at the root mark. It sped up again when her eyes moved over my bare arms. That new sense felt far too private. I forced my attention to the trial notice. Stay near me during the trial, I said. Leora's eyes narrowed. Was that an order? A request. Better. She smiled. We used the next day to learn what the orchard could do. Root sense found every weak beam in the house. Silver roots replaced them before sunset. Lightning body became easier to control after I stopped trying to hold the power still. Predator strength let me lift the broken water tank from the roof with one hand. Leora watched every test. She also made me stop whenever blue lines reached my throat. That evening, we ate fresh berries and the last of my bread beside the first tree. Leora told me her dawn barrier had always been treated as a family asset. I told her my parents had planted the old garden before they disappeared into a dungeon and never returned. Neither of us tried to solve the other's loss. We only stayed beneath the silver branches until the lanterns in the city went dark. 2 mornings after awakening, more than 60 students gathered before Root's guard dungeon. The entrance looked like a split in the side of a black hill. Old roots as thick as ships ran around the stone gate. College guards checked fruit records, while instructors formed groups. Marcus stood at the center in full steel lion armor. He looked even larger than he had in the hall. Dark metal covered his chest and legs. Gold claws extended from his hands. When he saw me, his smile spread. Vale, did they make a mistake? No. This is a combat trial. I can water the monsters. Several students laughed. Leora did not. She stood beside me in fitted white and gold armor, a short gold cloak over one shoulder. Marcus looked from her to me. You are in my group, Leora. I changed groups. You cannot. An instructor hurried over, before Marcus answered. The man looked tired and afraid of wealthy families. Group 7, he said. Vale, Arden, and 12 low combat students. Stay in the upper tunnel. Collect 3 moss tags, and return. Marcus glanced at the instructor. The man looked away. I noticed a small black mark on the map in Marcus's hand. It looked like a hook wrapped around a drop of blood. Root sense burned in my palm.
Danger mark. Monster lure.
I said nothing. The upper tunnel was wide and damp. White root moss glowed along the walls. The students behind us carried weak powers. Clean water, sharper hearing, warm hands, strong grip. Useful in life, almost useless against dungeon wolves. Leora walked beside me. You saw something. Marcus marked our route. Her jaw tightened. A wrong turn? We reached the first moss bed. The roots beneath my boots trembled. 6 shapes moved through side tunnels. Then 12. Back toward the gate, I said. One student laughed nervously. We only need 3 tags. A howl rolled through the tunnel. The laughter stopped. Gray wolves poured from the dark. Black roots pushed through their skin. Their mouths opened too wide. Leora raised both hands. A gold wall appeared across the tunnel. The first wolves struck it hard enough to crack their own teeth. More hit behind them. The barrier bent. There are too many, Leora said. The students crowded behind her. I felt something under the moss bed, a hard seed, small, waiting. I dropped to one knee and drove my marked palm into the soil.
Root patch. Temporary connection. Seed found. Iron bark. Feed core.
A wolf smashed through the edge of Leora's shield. I caught it by the throat. Predator strength filled my arm. I lifted the beast and threw it into the wall. Its spine broke with a dry crack. The students stared. I tore the black core from the dead wolf's chest and pressed it into the soil. Grow. Roots swallowed the core. A dark green shoot burst from the moss bed. It became a twisted black tree, no taller than my chest. Gold lines moved through its bark.
Ironbark fruit. Power living armor.
I picked it. Leora saw what I was doing. Unknown glowing fruit number 3, she said through clenched teeth. 4. That does not help. I bit into it. The fruit tasted like ash and tree sap. My skin tightened. Black-green bark spread from my chest across my shoulders and arms. Gold lines locked the plates together. A wolf reached through the broken shield and bit my forearm. Its teeth sank into the armor. The wolf pulled. The armor bent, then grew around its jaw. The beast tried to release me. Too late. I punched down. Its head hit the floor.
New power. Living armor. Damage, repair, active.
The crack in my forearm plate closed. Every student behind Leora became silent. Marcus had sent a swarm after weak students. He had expected panic, injury, maybe death. Instead, he had given my garden another fruit. Hold the tunnel, I told Leora. Her gold barrier widened. What are you doing? Making the problem smaller. I stepped through the cracked edge. Lightning entered my legs. The wolves rushed me. I met them in the narrow part of the tunnel, where only 3 could reach me at once. One bit my shoulder. Living armor grew over its teeth. I grabbed its front legs and pulled them apart until its chest tore. Another jumped for my throat. I caught it in the air and drove lightning through its skull. Blue light flashed from its eyes. Roots burst from the floor and wrapped its hind legs. I crushed its neck under my heel. The rest slowed. Animals knew when a fight had changed. Predator strength made their fear smell sharp. I walked forward. They backed away. Then root sense showed me the lure hidden inside a crack in the wall. A small red crystal pulsed there. I tore it out. The wolves screamed as if a chain had broken. Half fled into the dark. The others collapsed, confused and bleeding from the roots in their skin. Leora lowered her barrier. One of the students stared at my armor. What fruit did you get? Gardener. He waited for the rest. There was no rest. The floor beneath the dead wolves cracked. Silver-black roots pushed through stone and formed a spiral stair leading down. A cold wind rose from below.
Root scar lower seal. Open. Connected seed detected.
Leora came to my side. This was not on the trial map. No. A thin line of blood ran from her temple, where the barrier strain had broken the skin. I touched it with one finger. The first tree reacted through the temporary roots.
Compatible light found. Sunwell seed nearby.
Leora felt the root mark warm against her skin. Her green eyes met mine. What did your house just find? Something that likes you. A scream rose from below. A woman's scream. Then steel doors slammed shut under us. I looked down the new stair. Leora formed a fresh barrier over one arm. Please tell me we are going back for an instructor. The instructors put Marcus in charge. That was not the answer I wanted. I stepped onto the first root stair. After one breath, Leora followed. Behind us, the students stayed in the safe tunnel. The silver stairs closed over their frightened faces. Only Leora and I went down. The root stair ended above a round chamber. A broken stone bridge crossed a pool of green poison. The far door had been sealed with black metal chains. White roots covered the walls, but every root near the pool had turned brown. A woman lay on the bridge. Long white hair spread around her like spilled silver. Half of her dark armor had been torn away. 3 crystal spikes stood from her upper back, and black poison lines ran across her very light skin. A huge shape moved behind her. The moon-fang basilisk lifted its head from the poison. It was longer than the bridge. Pale scales covered a thick snake body, but 6 powerful legs pushed from its sides. A crown of white horns framed its skull. Its eyes were dark blue and empty. The woman raised one crescent blade. Do not come closer, she said. Her voice was weak but clear. The basilisk's tongue moved over its teeth. That advice seems late. One pale blue eye focused on me. Then on my armor. Then on the lightning around my hand. You are a first-year student. I have had a busy week. The basilisk lunged. I jumped from the stair onto the bridge. Its jaws closed where I had been. The impact broke stone and sent poison splashing over the edge. Leora landed behind me and threw a gold barrier across the narrow bridge. The basilisk turned its head. The white-haired woman used that moment. She rolled beneath its jaw and cut both crescent blades across one eye. Silver blue light followed the steel. The eye burst. Dark blood covered her arm. The basilisk screamed and struck her with the side of its head. She flew across the bridge. I caught her before she went into the pool. One of the crystal spikes scraped my armor. "Put me down," she said. "You are poisoned." I noticed. The basilisk smashed into Leora's barrier. Gold light cracked. Leora slid backward, boots cutting lines through stone. "We need a plan," she said. The woman in my arms pointed one blade toward the beast. Left eye ruined. Front knee joints are soft. Mouth is weaker than scales. Poison comes from the lower fangs. "Name?" I asked. "Saris Vane." "Kieran. I know. Everyone heard about your F-rank result." It improved. The basilisk hit the barrier again. Leora's knees bent. "Very touching," she said. "Plan now." I set Saris against a broken pillar. "Keep the bridge from collapsing." That was already my plan. I ran forward. The basilisk opened its mouth. I also saw the dark green poison channels inside them. Root sense marked both. I jumped left as its head struck. One horn tore through the edge of my shoulder armor. The plate cracked, but repaired around the wound. I drove a lightning fist into the soft joint above its front leg. Scales blackened. The leg folded. Saris threw one crescent blade. It curved around me and cut through the same joint from behind. The limb came off. The basilisk's blood hit the bridge in steaming sheets. "Good," Saris said. The monster's tail swept across the chamber. Leora widened her barrier, protecting Saris. I took the tail across my ribs. Living armor cracked. The blow lifted me from the ground and threw me into the wall. Stone broke around my back. The basilisk charged Leora. She held the bridge because Saris was behind her. The beast hit the gold wall. The center of the barrier split. Blood ran from Leora's nose. Something cold settled inside me. Not panic, decision. I pushed out of the wall. Lightning filled both legs. Predator strength tightened my body. Living armor rebuilt across my ribs. I crossed the chamber before the basilisk could strike again. I grabbed one white horde with both hands and pulled its head sideways. The beast weighed more than a wagon. The bridge broke under my boots. Still, its head moved. Saris's remaining blade entered the wounded eye and sank to the hilt. The basilisk twisted. Its jaws snapped shut around my left forearm. The lower fangs punched through living armor. Poison entered my blood. The basilisk shook me like a dog with a piece of meat. My shoulder nearly left its joint. The world became white pain and hard stone. "Kieran!" Leora screamed. I looked into the creature's one remaining eye. Then I smiled. Its mouth was weaker than its scales. Saris had told me that. I drove my right hand between its jaws and caught the lower bone. Predator strength filled my back. The basilisk bit harder. Armor plates split along my arm. Blood ran into its throat. I pulled. The lower jaw opened. The monster fought me with its whole body. I pulled harder. Bone cracked near the hinge. The basilisk's eye widened. Lightning rushed through both arms and into its skull. Its muscles locked. I planted one foot on its upper jaw and tore down with both hands. The mouth opened past its natural limit. Skin split. The lower jaw ripped free in a spray of dark blood and broken teeth. The basilisk crashed onto the bridge. Saris moved. Weak or not, she was fast. She stepped onto the fallen head, raised both hands, and called her thrown blade back from the ruined eye. The crescent weapon flew through the basilisk's skull from behind. Her second blade followed. Silver blue cuts crossed inside the head. The crown of horns burst apart. The beast stopped moving. For 2 breaths, nobody spoke. Then my knees failed. Leora reached me before I hit the ground. The poison had already climbed past my elbow. Saris slid down from the dead basilisk and sat hard against its neck. "Lower fang poison," she said. "You have 3 minutes." Leora pressed both hands around the bite. Golden light entered the wound. The poison slowed. It did not leave. "My power cannot pull it out," she said. Root sense struck like a bell. A golden seed slept beneath the far wall. Another pale seed pulsed under the poison pool. I pressed my right palm to the broken bridge.
Root patch connected. Compatible light required. Sunwell seed ready.
I looked at Leora. "Give the roots your light." "How?" "Put your hand over mine." She did. Her fingers locked between mine. Warm gold power moved through my root mark. The bridge shook. A gold shoot burst through the stone beside us. It grew into a thin tree with bright round leaves. A single yellow fruit formed in seconds. Leora stared. I grew that? We did. The fruit dropped into my hand.
Sunwell fruit. Power. Solar recovery.
I bit into it. Warmth exploded through my chest. It was not gentle. It burned like sunlight inside my veins. The poison in my arm turned black beneath my skin, then pulled toward my palm. Gold roots grew from the mark and entered the stone. The poison left my body in dark drops.
New power. Solar recovery. Stacked powers. 4.
Leora's broken barrier glow returned. The cut on her temple closed. I turned to Saris. The black lines on her back had reached her neck. I placed one hand against the stone beside her. Gold roots moved over her legs and waist, stopping below the torn armor. Saris stiffened. What are those doing? Removing poison. Ask before roots climb under a woman's armor. May the roots save your life? She looked at me for one long second. Yes. Gold light spread across her back. The crystal spikes began to shake. Saris bit down on the leather strap of one blade. Those have to come out, Leora said. I know. I knelt behind Saris. Her armor had been ripped open from shoulder to waist. Blood and poison covered the pale skin of her upper back. The 3 crystal spikes were buried deep beside her spine. Tell me when, I said. Now. I gripped the first spike. Saris's shoulders tightened under my hand. I pulled. The crystal came free with a wet tear. Blood ran down her back. Solar recovery closed the wound behind it. The second spike had hooked under the skin. Saris directed me with a voice that never shook, even when her body did. Turn it left. Pull down first. Now out. I followed her words. The spike tore free. She exhaled through clenched teeth. The third sat closest to her neck. Leora held Saris's hand. I removed it slowly. When it came free, the roots drank the last black poison from the wound. Saris sagged against me. For a moment, her white hair covered my arms and chest. She was warm, despite the cold light around her. Saris opened her eyes. The poison is gone, she whispered. Leora let out a shaking breath and kept hold of her hand. A sound came from the sealed door. Metal, scraping stone. Saris raised her head. My team locked me in here. Her voice had changed. The pain remained, but something colder now sat beneath it. Why? I asked. She pointed toward the pale roots under the poison pool. Moon root seed. The captain said my life was worth less than a seed. I looked at the black chain around the far door. The hook and blood mark was stamped into the seal. The same mark Marcus had placed on the trial map. Iron crown. Leora saw it too. Her face went still. Maybe not every detail, Saris said, but this branch uses his family's seal. The basilisk's chest split open. A root pulled its heart free. The heart was black and white, as large as my head.
Monster heart found. Moon root seed found. Void vine seed found. Feed first tree.
I touched the heart. The whole chamber answered. Silver black roots raced across the bridge and around the poison pool. The pale moon root seed rose from below, wrapped in white light. A second seed, black with silver edges, came from inside the basilisk's body. The locked door opened by itself. Beyond it, 3 Iron Crown runners stared at us. They had come back for the seed. One man looked at the dead basilisk, Saris alive in my arms, and the 4 different colors moving under my skin. His face lost all color. What are you? He whispered. I stood. The roots lifted the basilisk card behind me. My awakening record says, Gardener. The 3 runners fled. The roots carried us home. Not through space, not yet. The lower chamber wall split, revealing an old tunnel lined with dead silver roots. The tunnel climbed toward my property. By the time we reached the house, Saris could barely walk. Leora supported her left side. I took the right. Saris kept both crescent blades in hand the whole way. When we entered the garden, the first tree bent toward the basilisk heart, floating behind us.
Feed heart.
Do it. The heart sank into the ground. The estate changed before we reached the door. The silver tree grew wider. Its roots struck the house foundation with a sound like deep thunder. Stone rose from the earth around the old walls. The roof lifted. New beams grew beneath it. Windows opened where solid boards had been. A second floor formed. Then a third. The cracked house stretched into a broad stone and wood estate wrapped around the first tree. A warm kitchen pushed out toward the garden. A training yard formed behind a new wall. Balconies opened beneath black leaves. Water-filled pipes that had not existed 10 seconds earlier. The front door became tall enough for two men to pass through together. Cirrus stared at it. Your house was falling apart when we entered the dungeon, Cirrus said. She looked up at the third floor, then at the glowing moon root beside the larger tree. The seed changed more than you. The roots carried her upstairs before her legs failed again. The north room had a large bed, pale walls, and a window facing the moonroot tree that now grew beside the first tree. White leaves glowed under the rain. Cirrus's armor was ruined. Leora found clean clothes in a new cabinet, which was worrying because the house had apparently decided it understood sizes. Cirrus changed behind a folding screen, while I washed basilisk blood from my arms. When she stepped out, she wore one of my loose white shirts and a pair of dark shorts. Her long white hair was damp and fell nearly to her waist, but not enough to make ignoring it easy. She noticed where my eyes went. So the gardener has normal powers too? I met her pale blue gaze. Some are older. Leora entered with clean cloth and a bowl of warm water. Her eyes moved between us once. No anger, only awareness. Sit, Leora told Cirrus. Cirrus obeyed because even dangerous women understood that tone. I removed the last pieces of poisoned crystal from Cirrus's upper back, while Leora kept solar recovery flowing through my hands. Cirrus gave short directions when a shard sat near bone. She never asked me to stop. When the final piece dropped into the bowl, she let out a long breath and closed her eyes. You trusted me behind you, I said. I trusted Leora to cut your hands off if you did something stupid. Leora smiled. She learns quickly. We ate in the new kitchen after sunset. The estate had grown potatoes, red berries, herbs, and hard black mushrooms that root sense marked as safe. I cooked the basilisk meat in a wide iron pan. Cirrus cut it into clean pieces with one crescent blade. Leora watched her. Do you always use dungeon weapons for dinner? My other knife is in a poison pool. The meal was simple. It was also the first time in years that 3 plates sat on my table. I noticed that more than the new stone walls. Leora noticed me noticing. She did not say anything. She only moved her chair a little closer. Cirrus ate slowly. Her eyes kept checking the doors and windows. The estate responded by growing a thin silver line across each frame.
Root defense active.
Cirrus saw the message in the glass. Does it always listen? Only when it thinks it is helping. That sounds dangerous. Yes. She looked around the warm kitchen. Less dangerous than my last home. I stopped smiling. Leora set down her fork. I looked at Cirrus. We have the seal. We have the lure crystal. We have the runners who saw you alive. They will deny everything. Then they will come here. Cirrus looked at me. You want that. I want them on ground my roots control. We spent the next day recovering and making the proof hard to hide. Cirrus wrote down the names of the runners who had vanished. Leora copied the Iron Crown seal and the lure crystal into a public message. I tested the estate line. Every root inside it could feel a weapon, a footstep, or a hidden core. By the 5th evening, Cirrus could walk without support. That was when the front wall flashed.
3 scouts detected. North Road.
Fast service, Cirrus said. I stood. Leora rose with me. You are still wounded, she said. So are they. We went to the outer wall. 3 men in gray guild coats waited beyond the gate. They wore iron crown pins turned inward to hide the mark. One held a message crystal, another had a narrow sword, the third carried a sack that moved, a monster lure. The leader looked up at the new estate and tried not to show fear. Property inspection. No, he blinked. We have authority to examine unregistered power trees. No, you do not. The man placed one hand on his sword. Behind me, the first tree moved. Only one branch. Enough. The scout swallowed. We know you took guild property from Rootskar. Cirrus is not your property. Cirrus stood there in my white shirt, one crescent blade resting on her shoulder. The scout's face tightened. Runner Vane is under arrest for theft. Cirrus lifted the Iron Crown seal taken from the boss room. Then explain why your lock was on the door you left me behind. The leader looked at his men. That was his mistake. Roots shot from beneath the road. One wrapped his sword arm and lifted him into the air. Another pulled the message crystal from his hand. The third opened the moving sack. A small clawed beast jumped out. Predator strength filled my legs. I crossed the gate before it landed. One punch drove the beast into the road. Living armor formed over my fist as bone broke under it. The roots caught all 3 scouts by their ankles. The youngest man raised both hands. Wait, we can talk. The leader tried to cut the root with a hidden knife. The root dragged him waist deep into the road. He stared at me from the dirt. Do you think throwing soil makes you dangerous? I looked down at the silver-black roots. They took that personally. The roots pulled him to his chin. I stopped them there. Tell Marcus this. The woman he tried to kill is alive. I have the seal, I have the lure crystal. If Iron Crown enters my land again, the garden keeps what it catches. The scout's face had turned gray. You cannot threaten Marcus Rain. I just did. The roots released the 3 men outside the property line. Their message crystal stayed wrapped in 1 silver root. Saris used it to send the seal, the lure crystal, and her own statement to the college guards and the city watch. If Marcus attacked, people outside his guild would know where to look. Saris came down from the balcony. He will bring more. I know. Leora looked toward the city. Her message crystal flashed in her hand. The gold Arden mark appeared. She read the first line and went still. What is it? I asked. My mother.
Return home. End contact with Kieran Vale. Sign the Iron Crown sponsor contract. Refusal ends all family support.
Leora read it twice. Saris looked away, giving her space without leaving. I knew what Arden support meant. Leora's college room, her armor, her training fees, her food, the healers who helped her when Dawn Barrier burned through her strength. Marcus had not only sent scouts, he had reached for the part of her life he believed he owned. You do not have to decide here, I said. Leora looked at me sharply. I already decided. She walked through the gate. For 1 second I thought she was leaving. The old wound in me opened so quickly that it almost felt physical. Then Leora stopped beside the road. She turned. I need to collect my things. Relief hit harder than I wanted her to see. Take whatever time you need. She reached up and touched my face. The gesture was small, warm. I am coming back. Then she left. The estate felt too quiet without her. Saris stood beside me, white hair moving in the wind. You expected her to disappear. People do. She looked like someone planning to burn a bridge. Her family bridge is expensive. Saris watched me for a moment. Then make sure the house gives her a good room. Before dawn on the 6th day, attack horns sounded beyond the north road. The sky was still dark. I stood at the gate in full living armor. Saris wore repaired dark gear grown with silver root thread. Leora had not returned. Iron crown torches filled the road. At their center walked Marcus in crimson and steel. Behind him, chains pulled something huge through the mud. A grave-back giant. Its shoulders rose above the trees. Gray skin stretched over black bone plates. Iron spikes had been driven through its jaw and neck. Each chain was held by 6 guild fighters. Marcus stopped outside my land. Last chance, Vale, he called. Give me the tree, the stolen seeds, and Leora. A gold light appeared behind him. Leora walked through the Iron Crown line carrying 1 bag. Every fighter turned toward her. She did not look at Marcus. She came straight to the gate. The roots opened for her. Leora stepped inside, dropped the bag, and faced me. I need a room. You can have the east one. Good. She held up her message crystal. The city watch mark flashed across it, the guild seal, and the location of the attack to every instructor she trusted. Then she wrapped both arms around me. The gold light around her warmed the armor across my chest. I held her close while attack horns shook the road. She pulled back just enough to meet my eyes. I chose this. I know, Marcus roared from outside. Leora turned toward the gate and raised both hands. A golden barrier covered the entire entrance. Saris climbed the wall with both blades drawn. I faced the army. The graveback giant pulled against its chains. The new home behind me had existed for 3 days. Marcus had already made the worst decision of his life. He had attacked my garden. Marcus raised 1 steel claw. 20 fighters rushed the gate, while archers spread across both sides of the road. The graveback giant strained against its chains, digging trenches through the mud with its heels. I felt every footstep through the roots. Leora stood inside the gate, both palms raised. Her golden barrier covered the opening from wall to wall. Saris took the roof above us. I count 4 assassins moving east, she called. I feel 6. 2 are better than the others. Then leave them for last. She gave me a cold smile and vanished over the roof edge. Marcus's first wave hit. Steel hammers, firebolts, and stone spears struck Leora's barrier at once. Gold light bent inward. Leora's boots slid back 1/2 meter. I placed 1 hand on the ground.
Root defense. Target weapons.
Silver-black roots burst from the yard, passed through the barrier, and wrapped every weapon touching it. The fighters tried to pull away. The roots pulled harder. Swords, hammers, and spears flew from their hands. A fire user lost both boots when roots caught the buckles instead of his weapon. The whole front line fell into one another. Leora pushed. Her barrier struck them like a moving wall. Men flew back into the road. One hit Marcus's armored chest and dropped unconscious. Marcus did not move. His amber eyes stayed on me. You hid behind a shield girl at school, he shouted. Now you hide behind her at home. Leora's gold light sharpened. I touched her shoulder. Do not waste strength on his mouth. He called me a shield girl. You are a shield woman. She glanced at me. Arrows rose from both sides. Down, I said. The roots lifted flat stone from the yard. Arrows struck the new cover. 3 carried red crystal heads, monster lures. They burst against the wall. A deep roar answered from the forest. Marcus had planned to flood the estate with wild beasts while his army attacked. Root scents showed movement under the trees. Dozens. I smiled. The first tree was hungry. Open the side ground, I told the estate. The wall split along the west edge. Marcus saw the opening. Break through, he ordered. His fighters charged toward it. The first dungeon boars reached the road at the same time. The roots changed their path. Instead of entering my yard, the beasts ran straight into Iron Crown's sideline. One fighter went into the air with a boar horn through his thigh. Another disappeared under 3 clawed deer. Screams mixed with the sound of broken wood and metal. Marcus looked at the shattered lure crystal near his feet, then at me. Gardener, I said. The graveback giant roared. Marcus's face hardened. Release it. The chain crews drove black spikes into the giant's neck. The creature's eyes turned red. It pulled once. 12 men lost their footing. It pulled again. The chain snapped. The giant charged. Each step shook the wall. Leora widened her barrier across the gate. No, I said. Let it through. She looked at the creature, then at me. You have a plan? I have a seed. The Voidvine seed had been waiting beneath the first tree since the basilisk fight. It needed fear, shadow, and a major core. The whole yard had enough fear now. I opened my palm. The black seed rose from the soil.
Void vine. Growth ready. Feed. Basilisk heart remnant.
The first tree sent one dark root into it. A black vine exploded up the gate wall. Silver-edged leaves opened around a fruit darker than night. The giant hit Leora's barrier before the fruit fully formed. Gold light cracked across the gate. Leora cried out. The barrier held for 1 second. Then, the graveback giant drove its shoulder through. The gate tore from the wall. Stone and gold light burst inward. Leora flew across the yard. I caught the black fruit with one hand and her with the other. Blood ran from her nose and mouth. Her eyes stayed open. I am fine, she said. You are not. I can hold another. No. I set her behind the first tree. Ceres dropped from the roof nearby. Blood covered one crescent blade. A cut ran along her side. Can you protect Leora? Ceres looked toward the giant entering the yard. I can protect the tree. That was not what I asked. Her pale eyes met mine. Yes. I bit into the void vine fruit. Cold darkness filled my mouth. My body became weightless. Every root-touched shadow in the estate opened around me. I could feel them like doors. The shadow under the broken gate, the shadow beneath the giant, the dark space between Ceres's white hair and her shoulder.
New power. Space step. Range. Root-touched shadows. Stacked powers. 5.
The giant swung one arm. I stepped into the shadow beneath the first tree. The world folded. I came out under the giant's elbow. Its fist passed through empty air and smashed the ground. Dirt and stone rose higher than my head. I drove a predator strength punch into its knee. Living armor covered my arm. The black bone plate did not break. The giant looked down. Its hand closed around my body. Fingers thicker than my legs squeezed. Armor cracked across my ribs. The giant lifted me toward its mouth. Its jaw had been pinned with iron spikes to make it obey, but the teeth were still long enough to cut me in half. I used lightning body. Blue current ran over the giant's hand. I space-stepped from the shadow between its fingers to the shadow behind its left eye. For half a breath, I stood on its cheek. Then it shook its head. I nearly fell into its mouth. Outside the wall, Marcus laughed. You cannot break it. Graveback bone is stronger than city steel. He was right. From the outside, root sense moved through the giant where my hand had touched it. Under the bone plates, a black core sat behind the center of its chest. The armor shell was thick. The inside was soft.
Shadow found inside target. Range, estate.
The shadow inside the giant's chest had become a door. The giant raised both hands to crush me against its face. I stepped. Darkness swallowed me. For one breath, there was no air. Then I appeared inside the giant's chest. Hot flesh pressed around my body. The sound was terrible. A deep wet pounding filled my skull. The creature's heart hammered beside my shoulder. Black blood covered my face. The core floated ahead of me, locked between ribs. The giant screamed. Its whole body shook. I could not breathe. I formed living armor over both hands and grabbed the core. It burned cold. Predator strength entered my back and shoulders. I pulled. The core stayed fixed. The giant threw itself against the estate wall. The impact crushed me between organs and bone. White pain flashed through me. Solar recovery lit. Gold light sealed the worst damage. I pulled again. Silver-black roots came through the shadow with me. They wrapped the core. The first tree pulled from outside. I pulled from inside. The core tore free. The giant stopped. Its heart struck once against my shoulder. Then it collapsed. The fall crushed the east wall. I space-stepped toward the nearest shadow. The passage caught for half a second as the dead flesh closed around me. Then I burst out through the giant's chest. Bone pieces and black blood exploded into the yard. I landed on one knee with the core in both hands. The dead giant hit behind me hard enough to shake every window in the estate. Silence spread across the road. Black blood ran from my hair, chin, and armor. The first tree lifted the core from my hands.
Core stored. Stage 2 fuel accepted.
Marcus stared at me. His steel lion armor had covered his full body now, but his face remained open. For the first time since I had known him, he looked afraid. Then fear became rage. He released his power. A roar struck the estate. The sound carried force. Windows shattered. The broken walls split farther. Saris dropped to one knee on the roof. Leora's gold barrier flickered around the first tree. My ears rang. Marcus charged through the ruined gate. Every step left a metal claw mark in the ground. The remaining guild fighters stayed back. They had seen enough. Marcus pointed one steel claw at me. You stole my dungeon. You stole my guild. You stole her. Leora pushed herself upright behind Saris. I was never yours. He wanted the image of Leora beside him. Her family name, her power, the cheering people would give him for owning both. He did not want her voice. I walked toward him. My ribs hurt with every breath. Solar recovery kept them from moving farther. Living armor grew over the cracks. Marcus smiled when he saw the damage. There, you bleed. Yes, you are not special. I looked at the dead giant behind me. That argument needs work. He roared again. This time I was ready. Roots rose around my boots and anchored me to the ground. The sound hit like a hammer, but I stayed upright. Marcus closed the distance and drove both claws into my chest. Living armor took the strike. Gold sparks burst between us. His claws cut halfway through the bark plates. Predator strength met steel lion. The ground broke under our feet. Marcus was strong. Stronger than any new fruit user should have been. His family's money had bought core treatments and combat training before awakening. For 1 second, he pushed me back. He smiled. Then the roots wrapped his ankles. I twisted his wrists outward. His elbows cracked against the steel joints. Marcus kicked my knee. Metal hit armor. Pain shot through my leg, but the plate held. I drove my forehead into his open face. His nose broke. Blood ran over his lips. The crowd behind him gasped. That sound hurt him more than the broken nose. Marcus tore one hand free and slashed across my side. His claws ripped through living armor and skin. I stepped into the shadow under his arm. Space folded. My heel struck the back of his knee. Predator strength broke the joint sideways. Marcus dropped on one leg. His roar began. Lightning body entered my hand. I grabbed the steel around his throat and sent blue current through it. The roar died inside him. Smoke rose from his mouth. He tried to turn. Roots spread over his armor and found every seam.
Root, sense. Power shell, weak point found. Chest, relic.
So, Marcus's steel lion was not only his soul core. A gold relic had been fused over it to strengthen the power. Illegal for a college student. Expensive enough to explain the fear under his pride. I hit the center of his chest. The first punch dented the steel. The second broke the gold lines. The third drove him onto his back. Marcus looked up at me through blood and cracked armor. You cannot take my power. I do not need it. The roots entered the broken seam. He screamed. They wrapped the gold relic and pulled. Steel plates opened across his chest, like torn jaws. The relic came free with a wet line of blood and light. Marcus's armor vanished. He lay in the mud wearing only the torn crimson clothes beneath it. The gold relic floated above him in the roots. Behind the broken wall, more roots rose from the ground. They carried old fruit shells, guild badges, and identity tags. Dozens. Saris came down from the roof. She picked one tag from the roots. Her face went cold. These belong to runners. Leora joined us, leaning one hand against the tree. Marcus stared at the buried tags. I do not know anything about those. Saris held up the iron crown seal from the basilisk chamber. The same mark is on every box below your branch yard. College instructors had arrived at the road during the fight. City guards stood with them. So did students from the trial. The low combat student whose life I had saved stepped forward. He planted the lure, the student said. Another student raised a hand. Then another. Marcus looked around for someone to laugh with him. Nobody did. I stood over him. You were right, I said. I am a gardener. The roots tightened around his wrists. You should have stayed out of my garden. I did not kill him. Death would have been too simple. The city guards took Marcus, the guild officers still standing, the lure crystals, the runner tags, and the illegal relic. Leora and Saris had warned the instructors and guards before the attack, so witnesses were already on the way. Marcus had brought an army, a chained giant, and his own proof. The rest of the 6th day belonged to healers, questions, and repairs. The estate rebuilt the east wall before sunset. It did not rebuild the old weakness. Black stone formed around silver roots. A new gate grew from living ironwood. The garden widened over the ground where the giant had fallen. Leora slept for 6 hours after her barrier collapsed. Saris let solar recovery close the cut in her side, then sat beside Leora's bed until she woke. I spent most of the day pretending my ribs did not hurt. On the 7th day, Iron Crown's Greyhaven branch lost its dungeon rights. The Harvest Authority demanded that the city hand the property over to them. The city refused because too many people had seen what Marcus did. On the 8th morning, Rootscar was placed under my temporary protection. I had helped kill its boss, protected the students inside it, and stopped the guild that had been feeding runners to its monsters. Me, the F-rank gardener. The house responded to that news by growing a bath large enough to sink into up to my neck. When I entered the room, I found 2 doors. Saris stood in the hall behind me. The estate has made a second bath. Useful. It may be afraid of us. Smart house. She looked through the open door at the warm water, then back at the dark bruises still visible across my ribs. You look terrible. So do you. Her mouth moved slightly. That was the closest Saris came to a smile. Later, Saris stood in the north room while the moon root shone beyond the window. Iron Crown still has runners, she said. They will come for the proof, the seed, or me. I know. Her pale eyes moved to the white leaves. I am staying because that tree answered my power, and because I want the people who left me in that room to understand they failed. She met my eyes as she said it. Leora moved into the east room with one bag. She placed her sun earrings on the dresser, hung 2 uniforms in the new cabinet, and stood in the middle of the room as if testing whether anyone would take it away. No contract? She asked. No. No family rules? No. No request that I smile beside you at public events? I had not planned public events. She looked at me. What do you want, Kieran? The question was not about the room. You, her breath caught. But I do not want you because Marcus lost. I wanted you when I had a leaking roof and an F-rank screen. I was just too busy surviving to say it. Leora stepped closer. I wanted you before the tree. I know. You did not know. I hoped. She placed one hand against the healed lightning lines on my chest. Her fingers traced them slowly, just as they had the first night. Then hope better. She rose onto her toes and kissed me. The kiss was warm and careful at first. Then her hand moved behind my neck, and careful ended. I held her waist. Gold light spread softly around us, warming the room. When we separated, neither of us moved away. Leora rested her forehead against mine. I chose you, she said. I know. Say something better. I am very glad you did. She laughed against my mouth and kissed me again. Later, the 3 of us ate beneath the first tree. The kitchen table had moved into the garden on its own. Lantern fruit glowed above us. Leora sat close enough that her knees stayed against mine. Saris sat across from us, in a clean dark shirt, pale hair shining under the leaves. For the first time since my parents died, the house did not feel like something I was waiting to lose. It felt full. The graveback core pulsed beneath the roots. The ground opened near the tree. A ring of silver-black roots formed around a dark doorway. Cold dungeon air came through it. A new screen appeared above the garden.
World Orchard, Stage 2. Requirement: claim a dungeon. Target found. Root scar heart. Root gate ready.
Saris looked at the gate. Leora looked at me. Then both women looked at the fruit forming on the branch above my head. It was white and black, with a slow silver glow inside. Leora pointed at it. Do not eat that tonight. I leaned back in my chair. I was not going to. She narrowed her eyes. Saris cleaned one crescent blade with a cloth. He is lying. I looked at the gate, the new fruit, and the two women under my roof. 8 days earlier, one weak fruit had ended my future. Now I had 5 powers, a living estate, a root gate into Rootscar, and enough strength to make the strongest man in Greyhaven look ordinary. The world said one fruit decided a life. My garden disagreed, and it had only started growing.